I'm Mint Salad and I saw Swamp Thing. It is directed by Wes Craven, and my exposure to Swamp Thing very little prior to this. However, I'm familiar with Man Thing, which is not to be confused with Swamp Thing. It's just a different property, but I got some burning questions that I would like to discuss later in the video, so stick around for that. And if you haven't seen Swamp Thing, I'm going to spoil it for you. So stick around. The movie starts. We're following there's a mysterious guy who works at a botany. He's a botanist. Oh, he died. He hasn't come back to the botany shop. The botanist lab, technically, is what it's called. And we're following Alec, who seems to be the head researcher, and his sister Linda. They're both doctors. They're botanists. They're like, we have this formula that we've created. It's glow in the dark, so it's perfectly okay. It's completely fluorescent. So anything that touches it should be hunky-dory, should be amazing, right? That's the good logic there. And that missing worker is nowhere to be found because he's missing. I don't know where he went. But you know what's also fun? Well, we got a bunch of hooligans outside the lab. While they're outside the lab, just being hooligans, just like, you know, creeping about in the swamp. Ooh, swampy. We get a couple of shots of, hey, you should appreciate the swamp beauty because there's so many species of swamp out here. Oh, the swamp is itself a person, is what I got out of it. But also, let's create this solution. Hey, Linda, could you take this solution and make it good? Put it together. Alright, I'm gonna put it together. I have this amazing solution that I'm gonna put my hands in. And I'm like, you shouldn't put your hands in it. Why did you put your hands in it? And then she puts her hands in it, and then bam, throws it on the floor, and it's kind of like firecrackers. I'm like, oh, that's not good. It's not good at all. And at this point of the movie, I was a little bit confused, mainly because the movie starts with like a title screen. It's like talking about the Swamp Thing as if he's already been a thing for a while. And then we're following this guy being pythoned by those hooligans. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. So I'm guessing this is what happens to the worker guy. Now we have the green goo. It's being locked up, held away. And then Linda is like, oh, I'm a person. I'm here in this botany lab. When all of a sudden, those hooligans, they break in. There's like a bunch of them. They're kind of a structure of a military, if I were to describe it, because there's like a bunch of them. They're all wearing camo. And of course, they want both the goo and the goo notes. The notes required to make the goo. Ah, yes, the sister of Alec, Linda. She's like, I'm gonna go and grab this amazing goo, and I'm gonna run off with it. And I'm totally not gonna get shot by the guys who have a bunch of guns and are throwing everyone around, throwing everything around. Also, I should mention, Alec, he put this flower from the swamp in like this container, right, on a table. Puts a little bit of the goo in it. And I'm just thinking, how is it not exploding? It's contact explosion. Do you have to like hit it hard enough where it explodes? Or like, can you like drop it and it's like, whoosh, okay, not exploding, but there's still some reaction happening. But you know what happens? Well, that plant kind of sticks itself to the table. And I'm like, that's one strong plant. I want to be that plant. I want to be strong enough to stick to a table if someone tries to pick me up. Then I cannot be moved. That's my life goal. Good old pal Linda tries to run off. She gets shot. And guess who also tries to run off? Well, Alec isn't very successful at running off. As a person, he gets all of the stuff just like on him, and he gets on fire, and he runs off to the swamp, and then he like bubbles. I'm like, oh, that's the creation of Swamp Thing. Okay. And then guess who's also in danger? The lovely, lovely guest that they've invited, Alice. Alice is the new worker supposed to replace the old worker. She's just kind of like, I'm being chased by a bunch of bad guys who were told to leave no trace, and now there's just a bunch of me going into the swamp and running around in the trees, and there's a jeep or some sort of car that just keeps on driving through the trees and has no shame trying not to hit the trees, instead really wants to hit me. And it's a whole chase scene until, bam, guess who shows up? Swamp Thing! But Swamp Thing first shows up in the water to protect Alice, because Alice is on a boat. She's being attacked in a boat. That's not good. And then she gets chased by a bunch of trucks. And guess who's there? Swamp Thing is there again. And honestly, Swamp Thing looks like a man. And here is my question to propose to you. Why does Swamp Thing look more like Man Thing and Man Thing looks more like Swamp Thing? I feel like their names need to be changed, because their designs are really different, but they're based on like each other's names. Man Thing looks like a swamp person. Have you seen Man Thing versus Swamp Thing? I'm like, okay, you're just clearly just a guy who has just like a bunch of veins on his head that's supposed to be a root. Okay, cool, you're kind of mossy. You have some cool healing powers, which will come in handy later. I don't quite understand y'all's names, but that's besides the point. What is awesome is, wow, Alice does manage to get to a gas station where there's a little kid there. His name is Jude, if I recall correctly. He's like just standing there. She's like, do you have a working phone? He directs him to the working phone. He calls what I presume to be like a head honcho, but it's actually not, because you also got the hooligans following this head honcho. It's her employer. That's what I mean by that. She's calling her employer, presumably, but it's actually giving the hooligans the location of her. I should also mention that, speaking of head honcho, there's this like one guy, right? He walks into the laboratory pretty early on the scene, and he's like, aha, it is I! You? No, actually, let me peel off my face. Yes, it is I! Not your friend, but someone evil. Would you say that someone named Arcane is very evil? Because that's the evil guy's name. He's very evil. Not very fun name, honestly, if I were to name it on a naming scale, but whatever, he's villain. He's like, I want to take this solution and I'm going to take it for whatever reason. I assume money, but I'm like, what's the ultimate reason? I mean, money, sure, but what are you going to spend that money on? Are you going to spend it on a big research facility? Are you going to spend it on your family? I'm actually more curious about what you're going to spend the money on, more than just, oh, money, evil bad, evil bad guy. That's what this kind of gives me the vibes of. So, you got a bunch of people kind of swarming to the gas station, and Alice has to run some more, and she almost gets in, has to like make a decision of, oh, am I gonna go into the swamp? Ooh, the Swamp Thing is back. He's here to protect her. No touching. No touching, says Swamp Thing. No, you're not allowed to have her. And he beats all of them up, and then you know what she does? She's like, shoo! She's so ungrateful. I mean, you got Swamp Thing just saved your life. Why are you being this ungrateful? But also, I should probably mention that Arcane now has the secret formula. Well, what are they called? Equations to the secret formula. And he's like, oh, I have all these 6 notebooks, and I have the perfect plan to recreate this formula. Well, hey, wait. Where's the newest book? This book ends 2 weeks ago. Well, it looks like she actually did steal it. And she did steal it. She gives it to Jude, though. She's like, here, have some safekeeping. Have some fun pleasure with it, I guess. Keep it safe. And that's what happens. And he's like, I gotta go get her. Also, Swamp Thing's just kind of going through the burns, the rubble, the debris, the burn marks of the old lab that is blown up. And you can see the humanity in him when he's like going over to the chemistry station. He's trying to like pour some things into beakers and he keeps breaking the glasses. You know what he does? He's so enraged. He's like, ugh, break this table. I mean, everything here is already broken and burned, so might as well. And I just felt, man, I like how this takes primarily in the swamp, and this follows the Swamp Thing, who is a person. He's a person, but then there's a whole boat chase that occurs because, we gotta go get Alice again. Also, Arcane's like, well, we actually should probably get Alice after a few attempts, but actually let's shift our focus into getting Man-Thing so we could probably study him. I'm like, why? Your primary concern is leaving no witnesses, but then you're like, well, actually, ignore her. She's fine. Let's get the big monstrosity instead. And I'm like, you probably won't be able to get the big monstrosity unless you do a bunch of trickery, which does happen. There's a whole lot of there's a lot of scenes, I guess. There's a lot of scenes in boats, or there's people talking to each other in boats, especially Jude and Alice. They're definitely talking about where they come from. Jude, sad story of his life. His dad hasn't returned, so he's like at a gas station alone. How is he keeping the bills on? How is he getting food paid? He's just like older. He's like a really old soul. It really makes me think that he's just an old soul. And I'm like, Jude, bless your heart, please don't die. And guess what happens? Let's go get Swamp Thing. Maybe Swamp Thing will just appear. Let's get Swamp Thing. And then Swamp Thing goes and is like, I'm gonna heal Jude because he's laying face down. That's not good. That's not the proper way to sit in a boat. You gotta go face up in a boat. But he has the journal. He gives the journal to Swamp Thing. This is also where we learn about Swamp Thing's abilities. His amazing abilities to heal people from the dead, which is a very useful skill. I'm guessing it's because his green abilities, his power of green, you know, the color green, the chlorophyll reflecting, I guess absorbing all of the light waves except for green. Yeah, that's the power, I guess. Man, light is weird, but anyway, Man-Thing, Swamp Thing is, swamping about next to Alice. Then BAM! Oh no, he's being caught. Also, you know what's also fun about good old pal Swamp Thing? He proves that he is Alec by talking about the genus of a bunch of plants. And I'm like, okay, that's actually probably the best way you can say that you're Alec, because if you're not a scientist, do you know what a genus is? Leave a comment in the below. I know what a genus is, because I took some science classes in college. But, like, the average Joe is not going to know what a genus is. So this has to be Alec, I swear. And so, of course, you know what happens? Well, he's captured, and then he's taken to a dungeon. But you know what happens at this dungeon? Oh, he's captured, then BAM! It's just a scene full of a lot of titties. And it's like around the 50-minute mark, where like the movie turns from like, oh well, we're following Swamp Thing to Swamp Thinging about, to now we're watching Alice bathe topless, and now we're seeing everyone a few women. I shouldn't say everyone. A few women are topless at this party, and I'm like, oh wow, how great. Amazing. What is this party for? Well, turns out Arcane is like, well, let me get a proper impression first. Mwahaha! I am Arcane. I am so epic that I did this research. I did all of this research. I think he actually mentions that he stole the research. I stole this research, and now I have a tough test subject. You, Bruno. You, Bruno, actually drank the glowing green liquid. Why didn't you look at your drink before drinking it? And then you know what happens? He turns... Well, first of all, before I say what he turns into, the horrifying process of just some shaking, everyone's just looking at him like, are you okay? Are you okay? But not really okay. He's not okay, he's shaking. And then you know what happens? Everyone scatters and we see a goblin. He's goblin! He turned into a goblin! We gotta figure out why he turned into a goblin. Well, let's take Bruno and good old pal Arcane. Why did he turn into a goblin? Well, it's actually supposed to enhance your abilities. And you know how villains don't really trust people? That's not true! I'm telling you the truth. It just enhances your natural abilities. I was already strong. So that's why I'm even stronger now. But stupid. He's weak. He's timid. So now he's tiny. No one will see him, he's a goblin. We gotta find a way to escape now that Arcane's gone. Hey, look, there's sunlight. Extend your sunlight arm. And he extends his sunlight arm, his arm goes back, and then he rips the chains off. But I'm also like, but you have 2 arms. Just because you had 1 arm doesn't mean your other arm isn't free to rip off the chains. I don't quite get it. This seems to be a stupid limitation that only Swamp Thing put on himself. But he's able to grow his arm because his arm got chopped off in a really big battle. So now his arm's going back, they all escape the dungeon, and there's just a convenient, if guards do accidentally get themselves locked in, we twist this little knob and then bam, the door is open. I'm like, a prisoner could find that out if they are bored enough. That's dumb. But what's even more dumb, Arcane's like, well, I'm gonna drink the solution with no caution to how it's going to affect me. And then he turns into a boar-like person. He's not boring. He's not like boring a hole. And he's not a boring person, but he is a boar. And he's like, I need to eat some Swamp Thing. I'm going to go get him. And then, time to chase Swamp Thing to a pipe that leads to the swamp? All pipes lead to the swamp, guys. Did you know that? I guess you didn't, because this is the first that I heard of it. But now there's an underground tunnel that leads to the swamp, and then there's a whole fight between Arcane, the boar, and Alec, the Swamp Thing. And they have a big old fight, which results in Alice getting stabbed. She bleeds a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit. I'm like, is that really a deep wound? People just bled that little. Next to the heart, mind you. Ah, dang. That must hurt. And you know what happens? Well, Swamp Thing revives her a little bit, and then goes off and beats her. Bam, bam, bam. It's pretty awesome. It's a pretty awesome sight. The score is fun when it comes to the final fight. The score is awesome. It really helps with the fight scene, helps it make it feel fantastical. And I'm just like, amazing. Swamp Thing won after Boar falls and then gets back up and falls again and dies. And his murder was not was not on screen. It was very clever not to show him. He only showed the bashing of the body, then his dead body. I'm like, well, did he get decapitated? Like, well, how did he die? That doesn't matter. What does matter is now we have Alice and Jude are watching Swamp Thing go into the swamp because his hands are too big to perform chemistry. And Alice, I don't know how smart she is. I don't know if she has a PhD. So maybe Alec should probably not go into the swamp because there's botany to do. But whatever, now he's swamping about in the swamp and that's how the movie ends. This movie is pretty ridiculous. The soundtrack, especially for the party, is like really weird. Also the cuts, I've noticed a lot of the cuts are not like fades or anything, but a lot of them are like, oh well, let's do like a PowerPoint presentation transition. But this is the 80s, so there is no Microsoft PowerPoint. I mean, come on. Was it invented in 82? No. It wasn't, but I did like these transitions, and I'm glad that I could use these transitions in all of my assignments for using PowerPoint. Big realization during the movie. Oh, they must have used those transitions because it's a comic book movie. It's for comic books. It's a comic book movie. Did I mention it's based off of a comic book? Well, it is. That's why I think they used those transitions. The character designs, I like Alice's floral shirt. She's cute. She's really cute. Also, I should probably mention, the best part about this movie is every time that she runs, she's not wearing a bra, and she has rather large, very, what's the proper term? Bouncy tits in her shirt. And it's awesome. I'm like, whoa, look at those go. Wow, they're bouncing. It's like a bouncy house in here. Are we bouncing out? Are we in a bouncy house here? What is happening? Swamp Thing is pretty decent. But I'll have to review the other swamp-based creatures, Man-Thing, when y'all are good. So keep out an eye for that when y'all are good. So, other than the amount of swampiness, oh man, did I mention that this takes place entirely in the swamp? It's awesome. It's entirely in the swamp. What a name appropriate for the location, the person, I guess the profession is in the swamp. It's good name. Honestly, I'm very impressed with the name because of all the swampiness. I gotta give this movie a solid 6 out of 10. If you liked that review, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. The ultimate goal of this channel is for me to become an expert movie reviewer, so if I haven't reviewed it on the channel, there's a chance I haven't seen it at all. So you can request a movie for me to review in the comments below, or you can fast track that request at patreon.com/ASEpresents for $20 a month for one movie review per 1 month, or $3 a month for some daily vlogs, all at patreon.com/ASEpresents. And if you want to help support the daily grindiness, you can go to this link tree right here for some daily sets and also NSFW content. It really helps out with the channel. Go here for the daily grindiness. Until next time, mint salad saw. I'll see you later, my salad croutons and bacon bits.